Welcome to Dodgers Daily. Casey Porter here. So excited to bring in a new podcast co-host on Wednesdays from the West Coast. Always needed somebody on the West Coast that is a great Dodgers fan and a great baseball person. As you're seeing on the screen right here, Andrew Hickman. We're going to get into his pedigree here in just a minute. But Andrew, super excited to bring you into the show. Thank you so much for joining.
So glad to be here. Nothing finer than getting up in the morning on the West Coast and talking Dodger baseball.
I know that we have communicated quite a bit about Dodgers baseball. You have a wonderful pedigree. You coach, you're a head coach at the high school level. You played all the way up through JUCO. You've coached at every single level. I think you started coaching actually when you were playing there at Cerritos College. So, hey, you have every type of experience in the game, all the way down, as low as T-ball, all the way up to JUCO ball. You've always been a huge Dodgers fan, so you've always been around pro baseball. So you're going to bring a very unique perspective.
Glad to be here. I'll use whatever I can to relay my thoughts on the Dodgers organization at all levels and maybe even break down some fundamentals and position by position opinions and do what I can to help our Dodger faithful stay informed. Okay,
I've gotten Coach Holt's thoughts. I've gotten Austin's thoughts. I gave my thoughts on a big, long show last week where I probably rambled on way too long. Going to get your thoughts. Obviously, nobody's happy about the 2 exits in a row, back-to-back years to the Padres and the Snakes. 4 out of the last 5 years, the last 4, regular season, when the regular seasons were the regular length, the Dodgers have lost to a team with less than 90 wins. So something's going on here. So what are your thoughts on the Dodgers right now? How do you see them? Is there anything that you think needs to be changed?
Quite honestly, from a fan standpoint, the big elephant in the room is the playoff format over the last couple of years, I think, has done the Dodgers in. The other teams that we faced, being the Padres and the D-backs out of our own division over the last 2 years, they continued to play baseball after their 162-game season. The Dodgers, after tuning their bodies in over that 162-game season, now had to sit around for 5 days and wait for an opponent. Playing the game of baseball, you get used to a certain daily routine and you get used to the competition level. And when that's removed from your daily routine and you sit around almost on a vacation, your body doesn't have the same muscle memory, coordination and all that. It starts to suffer. So in my opinion, I think that was a big contributor as to why we just kind of laid a big egg in the playoffs this year.
Certainly did that. Is there anything the Dodgers, would it help them maybe to come to, Oklahoma City and Tulsa are within 100 miles of each other? Would it maybe help them to maybe get out and travel a little bit, come to Oklahoma, play the AAA team in Oklahoma City one night, maybe the AA team the next in Tulsa, and then travel back to LA? So you're not just sitting, in LA for 5 days in the same environment over and over and over. Would that help maybe? Is there anything creative like that you might be able to do?
I think that's a great idea. It isn't as intense as, traveling and playing in a major league ballpark.
But Oklahoma City would fill that up. So would Tulsa. You'd have 10 to 15,000 fans back-to-back nights. They'd be asking for autographs. It would be more game-like, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would, and that would keep them sharp. Not only that, you'd get 2 bonuses here because then the guys that haven't been called up to the show yet, they're getting to see, they're getting exposure to the major league level talent, and having the Dodgers compete against people that they may be teammates with in the future, that's a benefit to both clubs. And it keeps the major league club sharp for the playoff series coming up.
So let's say that you come to Oklahoma, you play Oklahoma City one day, Tulsa the next. You fly back to L.A., say 2 days before your first wild card game. Then you take maybe an all-star team between your AAA and AA roster. You send them to L.A. as well, and you play one more exhibition game in front of your fans in L.A. 3 exhibition games, you get travel. It's not just kind of 5 days in a row, the same thing. I don't know. I'm trying to think out of the box here.
Yeah, the Dodgers did hold a inter-squad scrimmage at Dodger Stadium. They invited fans to come in, but that was more of a loosey-goosey, informal, just going through the routine and benefit the fans a little, the season ticket holders. But something like that where you could actually put comparable talent on the field is going to help keep the ball club sharp. And they don't have those 5 days with an inter-squad scrimmage mixed in there for fun. It's not the same. There's got to be some level of competition. There's got to be the repetition for the guys that are going to be playing in that series. So I think that's a great idea. That would solve one of their playoff format problems.
I know that, like Kyle Hurt and Gavin Stone, they went to LA and they worked out with the club and they pitched in the inner squads. But I guarantee you get a River Ryan out there, you get a Ben Kasparius out there, you get guys like that, maybe maybe any of the relievers from Tulsa and Alec Gamboa, somebody like that, and they're throwing in Oklahoma City against the Major League Club a couple of days before the playoffs. They're going to feel like, hey, this is my chance to make my mark. They are going to be super motivated. So I think, maybe something like that outside the box would be really cool. Plus, I think it would be travel, which I think to an extent would be good because it would just get you out of a stale routine. But hey, what we're going to talk about in this show, Andrew, we're going to dive into it right now. I know Andrew Friedman had his big press conference last night. He talked all about the state of the Dodgers. I'm going to say point blank, I was super impressed with the leadership that he showed yesterday. I thought he set a perfect tone. I thought he was just exact enough, but then just vague enough to kind of let fans know that, hey, there's some openness to this that we still haven't quite got to. So what were your initial impressions of the Andrew Friedman press conference?
I share that thought of he conducted himself very professionally, and he was to the point on certain topics, and he was just vague enough to, not lock himself into something that people could quote all over the internet, any sort of media, and still show that they are working. They are aware of the deficiencies that were on display during the playoff series, and, let people know we are going to work on it, but we're not going to overreact right now. We're not going to, this went wrong. This guy's got to go. We got to bring in this guy. We got to spend all this money, the Ohtani and the Snell and all those rumors. They're letting all that stuff quiet down because right now it's just noise. They have a job to do. They got payrolls to consider. They've got future teams to worry about, the guaranteed success of the team that's made the playoffs 11 years in a row, which that's not an easy job to do. It's hard to put a competitive team that competes for a World Series title every year on the field every year.
No doubt about that. And hey, one thing that I thought was very interesting for that he kind of brought up in the press conference was the fact that when he came out and said, hey, there's going to be no changes to management. I know, fans, and I even said in my show last week, hey, if you're on, this isn't Dave Roberts' fault in my opinion, but I even stated that if you just think, sometimes a new voice is needed, I'm good with that. Having said that, he came out and point blank said Dave will be back next year. But what I found really interesting was that when he was talking about changes, he didn't say Dave specifically. He just was kind of talking about changes as far as, personnel. He said, I'm not sure. I thought that maybe at the end of last week, but over the weekend, I've come to the conclusion that change just for the sake of change isn't worth making. I found that to be a very interesting way that he quoted that.
Me as well. Like I was talking about the noise that's going on right now. It's still at volume level 9,
Yes.
Everybody
so.
is talking about Dave's got to go. We've been in the playoffs every year. We only have one World Series to show for it. All these things, but people don't understand. Dave Roberts also has a difficult job.
Yes.
He has to come up with some way, especially with a starting rotation that at some point every single starter was down this year. It happened last year too, but this year was pretty amplified with the elbow injuries, people going down for the season, not having Walker Buehler available this year, the Julio Urias situation. That's a lot to deal with as a manager. And for us to still win 100 games is a pretty monumental achievement. I actually think Dave Roberts does a good job of dealing with adversity, because the Dodgers have a lot of it over the last 2 seasons, especially. Do I agree with everything he said he does all the time? No. I'll sit on my couch and overmanage from, my comfy chair, but I'm not out on the field. I'm not in the dugout. I'm not aware of what's going on with each and every individual player and the injuries they may be dealing with and still playing, or the things that are going on an everyday basis within the club.
Yeah. One thing I also found very interesting that he brought up was, hey, we're going to be very aggressive to put the best amount of talent on the field for the Dodgers. So at this time next year, we're not sitting in the same situation and talking about a first round exit out of the playoffs. And then he just kind of threw that delicate balance between, hey, the prospects and the rookies in the organization, getting them the right amount of exposure, but yet also, going and getting free agents or going and getting somebody in the trade market. I think he was very vague in that. I really appreciate the fact that he actually addressed that, because that's been one of my biggest frustrations. I think the Dodgers do choose veteran over rookie whenever push comes to shove. I think Game 3 showed that very clear in the playoffs. And so that's always been kind of a frustration for me. I think the Dodgers take forever to get their prospects to the major league level. I think they take longer than every other organization in the league. If they don't, it's got to be very close. That's frustrating to me as well. And then once they bring them up, it seems like the window and the pressure on them is a situation to where it's hard for them to get comfortable, because they have to hit the ground running. And if they don't, fans lose their mind. It seems like, I think Miguel Vargas got good runway. So did James Outman. But a lot of times if they don't come out and go, 4 for their first 5, fans are losing their mind and they lose that runway. And for a rookie, that makes it extremely difficult. So I really appreciated the comments that, hey, we are very aware of the delicate balance between bringing your rookies up versus going, the trade market free agency route. And then also I really appreciated the fact that he actually addressed the fact that not every rookie hits the ground running, and as an organization, we have to account for that.
Once one of our prospects reaches the AA, AAA level, people start to familiarize themselves with them. Well, true Dodger fans do that. I know I do that. I even try to look a little lower in the system and recognize people that are coming up, and I do a lot of that through your wonderful tutelage and coverage of our minor league system. And fans tend to, like you said, if a guy doesn't go 4 for 5 in his first game in his rookie debut, they seem disappointed. They expect them to do that. Not everybody's a James Outman and hits a home run on their first at bat. I can remember a few different Dodgers that have done that throughout the years. The first one I can remember is Jose Offerman. And most people don't even know who that is, but he hit a home run in his first at bat. But I do think the Dodgers organization does a good job of tempering that expectation with the development of the player. Mm-hmm. It's not good for especially a young pitcher to come up. Young pitchers struggle usually when they come up to the major league level. It's trial by fire, and that fire's hot. So I think the Dodgers do a really good job throughout the organization of, when they do bring somebody up, they don't expose them to situations where it can mentally curb their progress. You don't want to see Gavin Stone go out there and get shelled for 7 runs in an inning and then roll him out there again the next inning. Take him off the field, work with him, see where his pitches weren't hitting and what pitch mixes he was using.
Bullpen, that type of thing, yeah.
Yeah. And rather than let him sit there and struggle and lose all of his self-confidence, the Dodgers do a good job of protecting their young talent.
I would agree with that. And I think my argument to that would be, I think they overprotect them from time to time. I think these guys are 25, 26 years old. I think, a lot of times we remember when we think rookies, we think 20, 21, 22 years old. These guys aren't that age. They are 25, 26. In Michael Busch's case, he's closer to 30 years old than he is 20. So they're a little bit older. Michael Busch played just, and also college baseball is such a high level of baseball now. I would say like in Oklahoma State, at North Carolina where Michael Busch went to college, I would say if they played the Tulsa Drillers, it would be a really good game. I mean, these guys at OSU and in North Carolina and Louisville, like Bobby Miller, they're coming out throwing 94, 95 with 4 pitches, and they're really, really good. So, these guys have high-level experience coming into the organization. Then they played all the way through, as well as I do, Andrew, you see it all the time. You go to Oklahoma City when you're in the Reno area. So every time they play the Aces there, you get to go see them. And so, if you get to the double AAA level, you are major league caliber. You get to see that. So I think my probably biggest argument is that, or complaint I would have, is that maybe they overprotect him at time. Am I off there?
No, you're not. I've noticed that other teams are pulling up pitchers and position players that are 20 and 21 years old, and they're making their major league debuts, and they're sticking with the big club. Like you said, the Dodgers, it seems to be more. Yeah, and getting comfortable, getting used to. Michael Busch never had an opportunity to get comfortable at the big league level. I've seen the guy play in Reno a few times, and that kid can rake.
Yeah.
That kid can hit any pitch, and he can hit it really far.
Yeah.
But at the major league level, he's yet to adjust to that level of pitching. And I think all he needs is the repetitions, and he'll be an outstanding hitter in the major leagues.
One part of the press conference I was disappointed in, nobody asked Andrew Friedman about the offensive philosophy. Of course, I'm here in Oklahoma. I don't report. I have no way of getting to Los Angeles. If I would have had a chance to ask a question, my question for Andrew Friedman would have been, do you think you have an offensive philosophy that best fits a playoff format? We know the Dodgers score a million different runs in the regular season. Then they struggle in the offseason or in the postseason to score like they did this year. And so Andrew Friedman said his biggest surprise was that the offense didn't score. Interesting enough, if you go back to one of our podcasts when I had Coach Holt on, and I asked Coach Holt what his biggest concern was before the playoffs ever started, he immediately went to the offense because he felt like the offense had times to where it went dormant. And if this becomes one of those times, this could be a situation to where the Dodgers could lose. So I think the fans saw it coming. That was the part that I thought was disappointing from Andrew Friedman. I didn't think he addressed the offense and the potential for what happened being there before it did happen, and maybe some structural changes going forward.
Yeah, from the viewpoint of just a fan and following the Dodgers online, on TV, and press conferences, I agree that the offensive philosophy, everybody talks about the 3-run home run being the Dodgers staple. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you can ride that wave, but bigger waves like that, this is going to be a little bit of a West Coast reference here.
Yeah. Bigger
waves like that crash hard. And you got to find
point.
Your way back up to the surface on your own. You're not standing on a board and riding the wave anymore. Whereas if you catch some smaller waves and you play some small ball and you manufacture runs, you create pressure for the defense to deal with, that wave still gets to the beach as well.
It does. One thing, you've been in the coaching industry, you played at very high level, and I think you'll probably agree with me here, is that one thing that drives me nuts about that term small ball, I like to use the term aggressive or dynamic over small ball, because I think when people hear the term small ball, they immediately think you're going to bunt every runner from first base to second base. You're going to give up outs, and that's not what small ball is. That's a small part of it. Matter of fact, a team like TCU, study the Texas Christian University Horned Frogs in the Big 12. They score more runs than anybody in the Big 12 every year. It seems like they win the Big 12 championship. They went to Omaha 3 years in a row. They are a fantastic offense. They never bunt, but they will tell you they play a lot of small ball. So small ball is not bunting. Small ball is stealing bases. It's hitting behind runners. It's taking the extra base. It's forcing cutoff men to be perfect on the cutoff, or you advance the extra base. It's your third base coach sending runners home and forcing the defense to have to make a perfect play and living with the fact you might get a couple runners thrown out from here or there. So that term small ball, I think, has kind of been turned into a cuss word by a lot of modern day baseball fans, but it's really not just bunting guys to second base.
No. In my ears, small ball translates to, like you said, aggressive baseball. But to me, it's also making contact, situational hitting behind the runner. Putting the pressure on the defense, to me, is small ball. It's not the swing as hard as you can, elevate the ball, and hope it goes 452 feet.
And if you strike out,
Yeah, or if you strike out, oh well, next time we'll hit the 3-run home. To me, small ball is that, the aggressive situational hitting and contact hitting, making contact, handing the baton to the next guy. The greatest thing in baseball as a hitter is to double, and then the next guy trade places with the guy at second base. You double, and you keep that going on down the line. Okay, well, a single's still probably going to score that guy from second base, depending on where it's hit, but getting on base, putting pressure on the defense, making the defense have to think their way through something that you're forcing upon them. That, to me, is what small ball is.
That's a great way to put it. Putting the defense in situations to where they're actually in a situation. Hey, have we worked on this? Many times you haven't worked on it since spring training. That was 4 months ago, right? So, even professionals, that's a situation to where, you're putting pressure on them. They can certainly make mistakes from there. Okay, so you mentioned, putting the pressure on the defense. I found it interesting. that, the last question of Andrew Friedman that I saw asked was about momentum, and he immediately went to the offensive side of the ball. Hey, when you score a couple of runs, he didn't use the word momentum. I love the word he used. He used the word energy. And I can tell you why I love that word is because the Dodgers, you'll hear if you're around their dugout, you've been around their dugout a lot, Andrew, you'll hear this all the time, positive energy. You'll hear him say, hey, we need some positive energy, guys. You won't hear him say momentum. You won't hear him say this. You'll hear him say, hey, guys, we need positive energy. Because the Dodgers feel like positive energy first leads to positive results. And even if it doesn't lead to positive results, when you take all the intangibles like what people want to call momentum and all that, the Dodgers really feel like positive energy throughout the dugout overcomes all those intangibles. So I love the fact that he went immediately to the word energy. I thought that made a lot of sense for what the Dodgers do.
Yeah, and that positive energy is, for lack of a better term, it's contagious.
It is.
And if you stay focused on the positive, you're going to notice the positive outcomes. Whereas on the other side of the coin, if you stay focused on negative energy and you complain about everything, or you chew a guy's butt because he struck out, that's not going to breed nothing but negativity. So the positive energy, that reinforcement of what is trying to be accomplished and celebrating even the little small successes, keeps the team focused in the right direction. The positive energy can lead to momentum, but it's got to start with that positive outlook. Hey, yeah, you grounded out to second base, but look at this. You got the guy that was on first. Now he's in scoring position. We only have one out now. Now the next guy's job is, hey, we need you to move the runner at the very least. Let's go up there. Let's make contact, be a contact hitter, and create some havoc. All that positive energy allows people the ability to succeed. Mm-hmm. Whereas if there's a doom and gloom outlook on everything, which fans tend to get into, myself included. Oh man, no, not another strikeout. Me too,
yeah.
It's not going to lead to a positive outcome. Positive plus positive is positive, or in multiplications, even in math, if you multiply a negative times a positive, what comes out? It's a negative.
Yeah, right.
So
absolutely. That's a great point there. That's pretty much my thoughts on the Andrew Friedman press conference yesterday. Do you have any more thoughts on anything that he said or anything that Brandon Gomes said? I thought it was interesting that he took almost all the questions and he answered them. That is just tremendous leadership. Hey, whenever things don't go in your way, the head guy, he's the one that's the most vocal. You don't leave that to the guys below you. So I thought that was a terrific way up. Andrew Friedman really just kind of taking it on the chin and putting everything on him and really putting everything into perspective. So do you have any final thoughts on the press conference yesterday?
I did like the fact that Andrew Friedman could go from dealing with all the questions of what would you do differently, all this, to pointing out the fact that even with the positive energy and the quote unquote momentum that was all going the Diamondbacks' way, you still got to recognize that when you get 6 runs in the first inning, it's pretty easy to develop some positive energy on the D-back side and vis-a-vis momentum. I did like that he kind of, pointed that out, that, hey, it's hard to come back from the positive energy and the momentum transferring over to the other side, especially when you're staring a 6-run or a 3-run deficit in the face after the first inning in both games. I like that he deflected that off. And I also, one of the critiques I would have with the pitching coaches, Mark Pryor, and the decisions made throughout the organization was, I'm noticing during the Rangers and Astros series and the Phillies and D-back series is there seems to be a little bit of a hands-off approach to the pitchers. Even when they're struggling on the mound, the pitching coach doesn't come out right away. You don't have 2 visits from the catcher before the pitching coach comes out, and then they all talk about it. And I think that also leads itself to the momentum and the positive energy. I think they're believing in their pitchers to work themselves out of a jam and let them develop the confidence to overcome the situations they're in. Whereas if the pitching coach comes out, if the catcher's already been to the mound twice, it's kind of breaking the rhythm that a pitcher can develop. And the Dodgers definitely have pitchers that have rhythm. You know, when Bobby Miller's on, he's firing every 9 seconds as soon as he gets the ball. He's not waiting and
Minor
sitting
leagues
around.
has had the clock for a while, so they've been trained to do that.
Yeah, so, and he's become accustomed to it. Now, Alex Vesia at the start of the year, he really struggled with it. I mean, he's so fiery on the mound and he's so ready to go and all that, but the batters learned that, hey, if we slow this guy down, he's not going to be as effective against us. So rhythm to a pitcher means a lot, and I've noticed that the teams that have moved forward in the playoffs are letting that rhythm continue with their pitchers instead of, trying to rescue them.
That's a great point. And also he was peppered about, hey, do you think you should allow your starters to go longer? And he specifically said, hey, it'd be great to have your starters go 7, only have to get to 2 relievers. But then we'd go 180, and then he'd talk about, well, those guys aren't accessible. They're not available. And then I can also tell you they're not trained that way. He mentioned coming to the Dodgers. I can also tell you they're not trained that way. You've seen it at the Dodgers minor league level. I don't mean that as a complaint one way or the other, but it's very, very, very rare that you see a Dodgers minor league pitcher go much past 5-6 innings. Certainly not 7 innings. So I thought of all things that he just didn't really, that I thought he spoke out both sides of his mouth, I thought that was the one.
Yeah. Everybody would like to have a 7-inning pitcher and then the setup guy for the designated closer, but that's not how the Dodgers work. The Dodgers have a pitching staff, starters, at least a 5-man rotation at all times, sometimes 6, depending on the situation and who's available. And then, we have longer relievers. We have a myriad of setup men, and we don't have a designated closer. The closest thing we have is Evan Phillips, but he's not the designated closer per se by any means. They can go to Gratterall. They can go to Shelby Miller. Everybody has all the roles in the Dodger bullpen.
Okay, Andrew Hickman, it's been great talking to you for the first podcast of hopefully many. Every Wednesday, we're going to get into a lot of baseball talk, a lot of prospect coverage, which I know you're super excited about. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. First time out, why not, right? Okay, so if you were the GM, if you're Andrew Friedman, where do the Dodgers go from here? What changes do you make?
This might upset some people, but I don't think I'm going after Shohei Ohtani. You're not going to get him next year if you get him to bat at all, but he's not going to be pitching for any club next year. And that's where the Dodgers would best utilize him, or where he would pay the most dividends for the Dodger organization. The next big name out there in pitching is Blakesnell, who is a definite competitor. He gets a lot of strikeouts. He doesn't give up many runs.
And he's left-handed.
And he's a left-hander. He would fit well into the Dodgers organization because they don't need to get 7 innings out of him. He has gone 7 innings before, but usually when he goes 7 innings, he's up over 100, 105 pitches. And that's because he does walk a lot of people. He does throw a lot of pitches throughout his outings. So he's starting to get into the age range where maybe he'll start to see some negative effects on the wear and tear on his arm, but as of right now, he's still an effective pitcher. He's probably the leading candidate for Cy Young in the National League, along with Spencer Strider, who we saw what happened to Spencer Strider against the Phillies. So if I'm the GM, I am looking for a big name starting pitcher, a left-hander like Blakesnell. I personally am going to stay away from Shohei Ohtani, but I'm not the one who writes the checks. Maybe that's because my opinion on Shohei Ohtani is because I can't write a check that big. Not sure I'd know how to spell that many millions. But
if you can, donate to Dodgers Daily, please.
Yeah, exactly. That seems to be Andrew Friedman's focus. He's hinted at starting pitching is going to be a key piece of their off-season activities, and I think that's a good. I had a memory pop up on Facebook the other day of when the Dodgers, I believe it was 2015 is when the memory came up. It said, "Great season, Dodgers. Now go get some starting pitching." Yeah. And I'm like, wow, that's still true today. So starting pitching is their is their priority in my eyes. And they have the position players both available and currently on the club. And not to mention, we're getting Gavin Lux back next year, hopefully, and hopefully he can play up to his potential. And we also have some youngsters in the organization that, in my opinion, just need some exposure, some repetitions. Mm-hmm. So we're sitting in a good position. We saved quite a bit of money this year on the payroll. We're not paying folks Ohtani money. So I think the Dodgers are in good position. I'm glad I'm not the general manager. I'm just the couch manager from my house.
No doubt about that. So if you went and got a Blake Snell, kind of like the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, they have to backload a lot of their contracts to make it work for the organization. I think if the Dodgers went and got Blake Snell, and it was, because the Dodgers don't like those long periods of contracts like the 8, 9, 10-year contracts, especially for guys in their 30s, because you're paying for so many years when a guy's not in their prime, typically speaking. So I think the only way that would work for the Dodgers is if they front-loaded Blake Snell's contract very, very, very heavily, and he agreed to that, to where almost all of his contract was being paid, say, in the first 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Even similar to I am going to say the name, Trevor Bauer situation. Yeah. Give him a bunch of money up front and give him the option to earn more and, decide in 3-4 years whether he wants to stay with the club or not.
Yep. I think that's the route. That's the path to getting a Blake Snell, of which the Dodgers are super, super creative when it comes to contract negotiating terms. So we're in good hands there. So, okay, man, Andrew, this has been a super lot of fun. Hope to do this every Wednesday with you. Have a West Coast connection now. Super excited about that. So thank you for joining Dodgers Daily.
It's been my pleasure.